really embarrassing introduction. I'm not very sure whether I'm really deserve all that what you really said. But thank you very much for that lovely introduction. At the outset, let me tell you that I would like to really thank Dr. Mohan Joshi and his team to invite me. And I selected a topic which is usually a family topic. The SION is my family. I personally feel that when somebody speaks about his own development as a career, you should always talk to your family. Many times all of us give a lot of orations across the world. Yes, I may have given many orations, but that time we always taken a scientific topic. Today I am going to unravel how I have really grown and what we normally come across, because all of you are like me, municipal professors, and we have gone through all the constraints of life while working, and through all that, when there is not so much of value which is given to you, how do you really grow further? So that was my topic of position. Before going, it's customary to talk about the person who are giving oration. I think R Talwalkar was a freedom fighter and a pharmacist. He was born in 1984. He did MS with chemistry, went to Europe, was held as a prisoner in Germany during First World War. And he willingly agreed to smuggle diamonds to be handed over to Lokmanya Tilak to fight for India's freedom. And that was his passion. Started Talwalkar Labs, started IV injections and poultice for the first time. I don't know, in my childhood there used to be poultice, when there was an abscess. And he got gold medals from Indian National Congress. One of the things which really struck me in his biodata was prepared vegetable ghee but did not sell on the moral grounds that it could lead to adulteration. What a concept. You have a money-making kind of a business, but you don't want to do it. And I think that goes well with the SION Hospital kind of a pride. And I think we should all respect that, yes, SION Hospital and Lokmanya Tilak has his own pride, and we should all say that, yes, this is what we have. So what I'm going to really talk today is my stories of published papers and developing an academic scholarship. We all have come here in 17 years when we are absolutely raw. We all come here, we don't know anything, and I'm sure all of you remember your days. Maybe when I joined in 74 into these medical institutions, we are absolutely raw. So I want to really share with you how we really go beyond our capacity and how do we try to work, how this system pushes us beyond our capacity. Now I'm going to go and begin and give a talk initially about scholarship. All of us talk about scholarship when we really talk about money. I remember about scholarship was the 4th standard scholarship of 10 rupees and 20 rupees 7th standard scholarship. It was all about money. But there is a scholarship, the concept of scholarship came in 96 all over the world, and that was academic scholarship, educational scholarship. And it is a product such as a journal article, a book, a presentation, or an endurable educational product with new knowledge or its presentation that is peer-reviewed and publicly disseminated. Since internet came in 94 and the things became easily available, this concept came that yes, when you call a particular scholar, when you have a new knowledge or its presentation that is peer-reviewed, so everybody has to say that, and it is publicly disseminated. Having said these 3 important concepts came by one of my teachers. Bordaj he's an anatomist, but he was the editorial board chairman still today of a medical education. A fine teacher, one of the best person I have really met as an academician in spite of being an anatomy. And he knows clinical decision making so well, that kind of a level he has achieved. And he gave these 3 criteria, peer review, public domain and platform to build for. Having said that, we go into now the types of scholarship we develop. We have a discovery, that is the frontier research. What is new in the world? How do you really go, the new knowledge which really comes. But there is a lot of work which you also need to do is what is called an integration. Putting research discoveries together to get a meaningful out of this. When you say a meta-analysis, when you say I want to do a systematic review, what I am doing, I am trying to put all world people research together and put it into, give me a message. What is ultimately, should I really give colonic wash or I should not give colonic wash before colonic surgery? Cochrane reviews. And secondly, the application. Whatever you really learn from outside, am I able to apply into my area, socially conceptual problems, what I'm going to face. So integration forms the basis of all of our work. There's another way of looking at anybody's scholarship is what is the purpose of your work? Are you describing what was it done? How do you do laser for varicose veins? A simple way that I will open here, I'll make a nick, I'll put a laser catheter and I'll burn it. That is what normally 16% of publications are description. Did it work? Is laser working? Is it better than the other methods? A comparative trial between the varicose veins, laser therapy versus open surgery. Now when you say that a laser is better than this becomes justification that laser is better than this. But there is another aspect of clarification, the mind of curiosity. We need to know how did the laser work? Did it really burn those vessels? Did it cause what kind of a necrosis it has caused? Now that clarification is about 12% of the work. So most of your articles will be justification. Clinicians are justifying. Clarification usually requires a lot of research work. And description is what we normally do, which we want to just describe. But remember, many journals will accept only justification articles. Very often, many of them will accept only clarification work, which we normally don't think. We just give a big name and they send article, it gets rejected, and we feel that my article got rejected because we did not send it to a proper journal, which it really needs to be. So then came the Glassix criteria. Now these criteria means any article which you are saying should have a clear goal, adequate preparation, appropriate method, significant results, effective presentation, and reflective critique. Initially I used to read a paper, I used to read only title. Then I started reading abstract. Then I started reading methods. Today I read the last part of discussion because that matters to me. I want to know what that author has his own experiential learning and reflection which has come, which I want to know. Rest of things I can read and I can see on a YouTube. I'm not really bothered about it. I want to know his experience and reflection. So all of us should really look at that reflective critic piece in any article, and that matters most for when your papers get selected. Now, academic scholarship doesn't mean all the time discovery. It doesn't mean that I have to every time do new. You know, that happens once in a lifetime. You have a new idea which comes once in a lifetime. But most faculty members think discovery is academic scholarship. What about integration and application? We have to concentrate on our daily work and get the scholarship out of this. And that is what I am going to show you today. How through your routine activity, how do you bring scholarship? So administrators and faculty members traditionally put teaching and scholarship in non-overlapping categories. Now there is a new word of scholarship of teaching, which is not the topic for speaking, but scholarship of teaching is something which is coming up in a big way because many people do good teaching work, it is not recognized. So what is the difference between activity and scholarship? This is one of the most important aspects. So are we doing regular work, and when do we call it as a scholarship? So and clinical care, when you treat patient, it becomes activity. When teach procedures to other clinicians becomes a scholarship. When you teach students, it becomes activity. Teach others how to teach and assess learning becomes scholarship. Provide outreach services is activity, while inform others how to design and implement programs becomes scholarship. And perform active experiments and informing others through presenting results become publishing paper becomes scholarship. So what we need to do is that we are doing activity, we have to also do scholarship simultaneously. So one nice paper from Paige Moran. She was one of my mentors for FEMA. Now, outcomes of poor linkage between activity and scholarship. Most of us continue to say that we continue to work hard, but we don't have a scholarship. And I have done so much of work, but I have not published. It doesn't mean anything. To a good scholar evaluation, it means nothing. It is zero. So, activity track, which we all of us get. In a hospital like KEM and SION, all of us are in activity track. That means what? We are seeing 200 patients every day. Clinical faculty members are very busy, no development of scholarship portfolio as such. Secondly, lack of clearly defined system for peer review. we have no motivation, neither we have a system of peer review. Evaluations of scholarship other than discovery research. Poorly designed system for how to best present, review, evaluate and other set types of scholarships. And therefore, there are normally three kinds of people who come. One, who are purely clinical researchers. Like on the go, they are writing papers, which are fairly reasonable. Second are typical academic researchers who sit in a laboratory, sit in a library and continue to write papers. 1,000 papers, 400 papers. Look at some of the Harvard people. They do that way. What you need to do is a balance. All of us are clinically overloaded people. So we cannot really sit in library. Probably if I would have sat in my library and my room, I would have been able to write triple number of papers what I can write. But then I would have lost so many other things of my teaching, my clinical patients, my other work, which I would have done. I would have not been able to do it. So we have to need to balance between the clinical and the academic kind of a researcher. So what is, if you want to climb over an academic scholarship, develop one or two major themes or areas of scholarship, balance between primary authorship and group of collaborators. Many times, MCI comes out with the article and everybody starts putting his first name. Sometimes you have to realize that over a period of time, everybody should have at least some articles. Balance independence with collaboration with mentors. Some of the articles could be of your own, some of the articles could be with your mentor, some of the articles with a group of people. Balance local and national scholarship. Even if you are on the top journals, see that you also publish locally because you should also have a local standing. Don't ignore the local practices. Don't ignore local orations. Don't ignore local conferences. They also have some place. Top peer-reviewed journals and top peering clearinghouses. I am sure you are aware of a new concept which has come, is called as a clearinghouse. Many of your papers which do not get accepted in major journals, now there are clearinghouses for every specialty. Whether it's education, whether it's surgery, whether it's they have a clearinghouses which are now considered to be a deemed web publication. So this is one more area where you can start publishing your articles. And after promotions, for which you require those mandatory kind of articles, which you complete, you go towards broader scholarship and documentation. And this is what you need to really do in your life. So how do you climb that ladder? It's very interesting that when you're a beginner, you have this is again from various papers, teaching, learning, resources you develop, Webster's, posters and presentation at an invention level, local and institutional. Then you establish your profile and then you get awards, you start working on the national and international journals, and then you go on to high profile where you now become justification and clarification ideas, you become a journal editor, you get higher degrees, and then you start being invited for conducting orations, you go at grant. So in your lifetime, I feel you should climb it like this. How you should climb it? At the age of 35, you should be at a local level, 45 you should be at a national level, and 55 to 60 you should be at an international level. Same thing, you carry yourself over a period of time, and that is what we normally should take a step in a ladder, which you do. Scholarship evaluation in India, we are new to this field. All of us are not aware, we normally don't look at this. Discovery is valued, specific ratings probably you still don't have. MCI initiated was good, but the criteria must change. Teaching must be rewarded and recognized. Don't underestimate the teaching. And need a radical change in this area of scholarship evaluation, which has to happen in our country, which will happen over a period of time. So that brings us to authorship matrix. How do you evaluate your publications? How do you evaluate your own, what have you really written? Is there a kind of a matrix with which you work? So the first matrix, there are many matrices, but the first matrix which was created by Google Scholar. I don't know how many of you have really gone to Google Scholar. Go to Google Scholar and type your name. You will get list of all articles which you have and how many times it is cited. And they created one index called as the I-10 index. That means how many articles of yours have been cited more than 10 times. It's a good index to know how many people read your article. One step ahead, they came out with something called as an H index. And people started looking at everybody's H index. Today, if you go to engineering, people have indexes of 120, 100. Most of the different departments have a different kind of index. And I'm sure many of you have not even looked at, okay, what is my H index? Because it's important for you to know what is H index. H index is, it looks at number of citations per paper and number of papers, and it draws a graph and it puts you somewhere like that. My H index is so 8, 10, 15. So it will tell you how many times maximum. For example, you have 20 papers, it will list that the first paper is cited 10 times, or I mean say 100 times, and the last is 3 times. It will find out the number where those number of papers are cited for that number of times. It was one of the common kind of index which came. All over the world, people started comparing research of similar career length. Comparing researchers in similar field obtained a focused snapshot of research performance, not useful for compare research from different fields. I'll come to that in a minute. Now, if you really look at various specialities, the anesthesiology, the mean index of a professor was 2.67. Dermatology was 5, internal medicine was 2, infectious disease was 7.5. You know, and toxicology was 11.67. Some of the specialties publish much more. Some of the specialties don't publish more. And this is what is all over the world. These are published papers. I'm talking not from my own, but this is published papers. If you look at the I-10 and H indexes of people, how they differ as per the specialty. Even they differ from engineering to surgery, surgery to medicine. You know, all these comparatively change. So you have to look at what is my specialty index and how do I cope up with that index and how I compare myself. Then came the concept that H index ignores the quantum of highly cited papers. If you have one paper which is being cited by 500 times and your second paper is cited only lower, then your H index will be same, but it doesn't count for that highly cited papers. And that brought a new convention, and so they said that okay, you have same H index, but somebody has a highly cited papers and somebody has a more papers. So how do you differentiate between them? So they brought a G index. You know, they are very interesting to calculate. They calculate the squares, and then came the E index, which tells you the width of your publications. I don't want to go into these technicalities, but I want to tell you that these all indexes measure. They measure, and what do they measure? So there is a scholarship beyond these indices. And what is called today as, there are recent initiatives, they have number of N index, C index, creativity index of an author. In fact, there is something called as a bibliometrics and research output, where people would measure one more important tool, and there was something called as an metrics, which will tell you how you have to be evaluated as a researcher. Or when you say scholar, this is the way people will do. There are multiple digital indicators. So now there is a framework in which we can evaluate people. But remember, we are working in a totally different constraints and somebody is working in a Harvard with everything available. Therefore, we need to really work on our scholarship in a scenario where we are working. We can't go on comparing with somebody who has enough time to really work. So we have to really think how are we going to work. So ultimately, if you see publications, who benefits? There is a concern about drug and technology push through publications. High-end journals are also not clean. You know, any gem also has problems of paying $35 to buy a reprint, and then companies buying reprinting and pushing their diabetic drugs. Develop scholarship as per the need and opportunities. Don't get influenced by companies and manufacturers to write papers or ghost authorships. And system, patient, student should benefit through your publications. Ultimately, the patient should benefit. I remember still a publication from Dr. Nadkarni where he had said RT feeds for a head injury, and that publication still is in mind because that benefited patient at that time in his trauma. And that matters most. I'm not worried about whether it is quoted in a very high journal or something, but that mattered to my patients and it saved my patients. So look at that impact which we need to really think about. Now I'm coming to my publications and my stories of publication. And looking back and moving forward, how did we really grow over a period of time? Now my journey in 1980s when I joined 70s, I came from a non-English medium school. So when you came from Parle Tilak school, which is one of the Marathi school, you know, it's very difficult for you to write English. Writing one paragraph in a scientific way is one of the most difficult things to do. You know, we struggle there. Forget about talking. We struggle in writing a small paragraph. Poor research training our UG/PG days. Today at least we have workshops. That time though we had no UG/PG workshops. Poor infrastructure for basic research. Poor incentives for research. And mental blocks for writing. Many times our peer really discourages us, saying that, "Arey, kya tu usme padta hai, chhod na tu, kya milne wala hai tujhe?" The value of which you will understand only when you reach at probably my age. So it's time to invest into this whole academic world because it still helps you to really grow. This was my first thesis paper. This was in my first paper in 1983, and that time Dr. Bapat gave me the topic. That time povidone iodine was a new kind of a disinfectant. So he said, you put this through one tube and take out through another tube for abdomen. We did about 50 patients in a small bowel perforations, and that we published, presented in ASI 1982. You know, I was a MS Pass registrar. As you know how you present the whole thing from end to right and present that paper. And my paper got published and I was very happy with these words like a prospective study of management of small. And, you feel really thrilled to read these words, and when your name comes into that journal, you really feel happy about this. The best part was that it got quoted and cited into Goodman-Gilman's pharmacology textbook at that time. So I was impressed. Yes, I've done that, something that I published a paper, it got cited into, say, Goodman-Gilman textbook. That time it was. So that kind of a pleasure, when you see your name into that Goodman-Gilman's textbook, you feel very happy that somebody is taking that word. The many things we struggled, but one of the major change in my life was that one of the scientific communication workshop, KM, that had one of the finest professors that time, Dr. S.R. Naik and Sita Naik. Dr. S.R. Naik died, much about 10 years ago. But he was the one who was a visionary who brought BMJ faculty, Stephen Locke, and whole BMJ editors team, and they conducted 3-day workshop on oral as well as written communication. And it was a small class like this, where hands-on workshop, it changed our mind. Okay, we need to write in a different way. So that time, Dr. Nair, I remember Abrahams, the Philip Abraham, Dr. Kothari and Dr. Longometa, and my bosses, my teachers and my students. We all jumped into this, what is called as a biomedical communication, scientific communication. How do we really go ahead and work on that? And then we started writing thematic papers. That time, it was the world of endoscopy. If you really look, 80 to 90 was a world of endoscopy, 90 to 2000 was world of laparoscopy, and 2000 onwards or 2005 onwards is a world of now HPD surgery. So that's the way you jump your career from one growth to another career. And we wrote 10 papers on 15 papers on endoscopic sclerotherapy and all aspects. It was not only clinical aspects, we did experimental research, we worked on dogs, we tried to look at the postmortem, we tried to study them, presented at all levels. Sometimes frustrated, sat onto the katta, have a cup of kind of coffee and batata vada and just discuss what I'm doing. But one fine day, I got a letter from Tokyo saying that your paper has been accepted at Tokyo and we are sponsoring you fully to go there. So it was with endoscopic sclerotherapy. This was my first international trip. That time to go international trip was one of the most difficult things to do. But I got a letter on Saturday and I had to go on something like a Wednesday or something like that. And it was in 3 days, hurried you to get your visas and ticket, and all those things were not so easy that time to get. Even a foreign exchange was so difficult. But one of the fine experiences, we went, that was a conference on the Clio Plaza. It was one of the best hotels in Tokyo. But most important means there we made the whole world viewers. We saw a different world than what we normally discuss. These are the people where we saw the Okuda, we saw Inoguchi, all the names you hear in Portland. We went to the Shugura's operation theater and we assisted kind of those operations. The names which you read in your textbooks, we saw them. We saw them perform. Futagawa's theater, I was there. And so it was so thrilling. Okay, this is a world beyond this. There is something which is an academic world which we have to really work on. And then came Professor Blumgard. I think I had a privilege to work with Professor Blumgard for about, say, 4 months to 5 months in Sloan Kettering, one of the topmost institute in the world. And I remember I went here there to join my fellowship, and I went on the first day to their research meeting, surgical research meeting. And I must tell you, for 1 hour I was lost. I did not understand anything. The protocols, their statistics, the way they were talking, probably they have never heard like that. That time I'm talking about 94 January. It's a typical snowy morning with cold all around. You're entering a coffee mug and entering into that coffee. And they were all discussing about cancer protocols and everything. I thought, we are now, that time I had just become professor, and I thought, I'm a professor, but how do I don't know all this? I don't know all this about this. But then, I think Professor Blumgart, and I don't know how many of you know Human Form, the person who has edited his book now, they really helped me to understand that research. What is the clinical research? What are those meetings which are done? And it was one-to-one teaching, sitting with you, editing that paper, and I wrote a paper with him. And he was so nice that when I went to him with a paper and a manuscript, I put his name first like typical Indian, and I put my name second. And he came and said, no, Avinash, your name has to come first. I was really floored. How can such a big man really tell me that it was the editorial which we had written at that time? He made me write his first name. And that gave a simple article like Hepatic Resection, the Changing Scene. This is a great man. He has today PubMed publications of 593. And he has a huge H index. But today also he is very active. His last paper got published in January 2018. And if you go to PubMed, he is still active online. That is something which I think we should learn from them. 2003, we shifted to GI surgery. It's a new department. And I'm sure Chetan would remember, and Prabhu, and how we struggled to get things. We got a new laparoscopic set, and that was donated by that one of the person, and he told us, yes, I'll donate that set, but you conduct workshop for the surgeons who come to us. So we took a lot of workshops. We conducted about 25 workshops for the basic lab workshops. We took people from all the small places, from Kolhapur, Ratnagiri, Pune, Dhule, Latur. That time laparoscopy was coming. So that was our work. We used to have 7 days, 6 days workshop. We used to have about every day 3 surgeries, and then we used to have a session with them. Now we started training teams of surgeons because we wanted to take surgery, laparoscopic surgery, to the Maharashtra cities, small cities. That time it was not done. So it was a mission. Yes, we have to take this across. Now that time we realized that we have a shortage of models, because that time dogs had stopped. In 1980s we used to operate dogs and kill them. Now I can say it very openly, because now the PETA has stopped all those dog labs. But that time we used to do liver transplants, resections, everything we used to do. In fact, some of my registers have papers on intestinal resections in dogs and all that kind of thing. But I'm sure Patwardhan will remember how we used to really do anastomosis. But then animal models stopped due to the law, and virtual reality is very costly to all of us. So we began with the one. I had gone once to meet anatomy department, and there was a workshop going on, which was a gynec workshop. Vinita was there. So she said, we are now trying to teach people on this laparoscopy there. And it was a wonderful set. I thought this was one of the best approach for us. So we worked on that, and we started working on cadaver laboratory. And our anatomy department really helped us to develop that cadaver laboratory. Way back I'm talking about in 2004. That time these concepts were new. In fact, people asked us questions, is it legal? Are you allowed to do this? Then we went into the legal and found out that Bombay Anatomy Act allows you to really do this, 1942. And in Mumbai we can do this. So we did that. It became very popular. Once it became popular, we thought we must publish this. So we published this cadaver as a model in IJG 2005. And all of us contributed to this cadaver as a model in laparoscopic training. It was a landmark paper. After a few years, we realized that cadaveric workshops in liver resection started. PSG, now there are regular workshops on cadaver resections. And lap liver surgery has taken a big way through cadaveric surgery. In fact, if you see the latest paper, Surgical Laparoscopy Endoscopy in 2004, it says cadaver lap for lap liver resection is one of the most important and excellent method to train individuals. More important is that when the American College of Surgeons did a review of 32 papers. They looked at 32 papers across the world. They selected 8 papers for the systematic review, and ours was the only Asian paper of academics. So we realized it is a very simple thing for us, but for the world it was a very big thing. So many of us think this was something which should not have published, but when the American college looks at a meta-analysis, they select our paper if it is properly written. And that matters most. It doesn't require, it was just a self-review and all that kind of thing. So then we started writing about thematic papers on laparoscopic education. Dr. Prabhu, Dr. Chetan are with us. So we wrote on cadaver, we wrote on effectiveness of box trainers in laparoscopic training. We went on higher one after another. We went on skill training. You know, one of my students, Krishna, he went to England, he worked with Darzi, and he has now maximum papers on laparoscopic training. He is one of the world leader on laparoscopic training. How to assess laparoscopic training and hand. And you know, somebody can pick up from one of these and he goes there and he becomes a world leader in that particular field. And laparoscopic training in India, I wrote that time in 2009. And then we did a randomized controlled trial about first year resident training, and we worked on retention of skills, which is one of the very rare kind of a study which is done. So our paper got accepted in Journal of Surgical Education in first hand without any correction. And I thought, if you start understanding what world want, then people accept those papers. If you write run-of-the-mill papers, it will get rejected. But if you know there is a lacuna in the retention and nobody has written there, let's do a randomized control trial, it will get accepted by even the highest journal in education, that is surgical education. You should use opportunities day-to-day life. In 2007, we got into practice. You know, it was a very heavy work for all of us. You do everyday surgery, then, and as Chetan told us, we work from morning, say 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock every day in OT. It's actually very cumbersome. After that, you go home, you sit in your clinic. In the morning, you do surgery. It's a hard work for a person who does practice. And this. I can see many of you must be doing all this, but it is not the way of life. I started getting shoulder pain. I got laparoscopic shoulder. You know, I started getting pain. I was not able to control myself. Treated with painkillers. Went to physiotherapist. One of our physiotherapists, Bhavna, is one of the best. She told me, sir, you have got a laparoscopic shoulder. I said, what happened? She told me, this muscle, this tendon is not working. And then she said, she gave me TheraBand exercises and I recovered. But then I realized why this is happening, why I am getting this pain. Why did I came to this kind of a thing? So, I hope it works. Yes, look at the shoulder of a shoulder of a surgeon, how does it do? See how we use, especially there's a girl standing and I am trying to operate. Many times I abduct my shoulder and I work, and that causes maximum amount of pain. All of us have gone through like this. You know, we strain ourselves beyond our capacity. So I went into detail saying that let's go to the water sports. So I studied water sports and I said, okay, there's a shoulder line, there's a poor torso rotation and the power position. And we studied how people really do shoulder kind of those sports and how they get shoulder injuries. Very interesting kind of a field. And I came out with, and I found out that do not overextend your arms, power position. And I realized that all this is because of the ergonomics. And you have to really, at that time ergonomics was not a concept. So they asked me to speak in one of the conferences. I spoke, I read about it, and I published a paper on ergonomics in laparoscopic surgery. And that was a landmark paper because that time nobody had written in the world about ergonomics in laparoscopic surgery. And I was also very new, so I went into those companies and looked at those instruments, the type of grips. And whenever you go to workshops, you start looking at this. And it is one of the well-cited paper, and it helped me to give talks all over the India on ergonomics in laparoscopic surgery. And now it is a very standard talk in most of the laparoscopic courses. The people have started realizing the value of minimally invasive surgery and how you should kill yourself. Then came our common diseases. All of us treat gallbladder stones. I remember in 1976 when I was an undergraduate, Dr. Vasanchit did his first cholecystectomy and the whole college knew that he has done cholecystectomy. Everybody gathered. I'm sure Dr. Bhatt would remember that doing a cholecystectomy in 60s or 70s was an event in a hospital. And then today, every day we do 4 to 6 gallbladder operators in KM today. And I'm sure there must be similar in SION and other colleges. So the surgery has become much more wide. So now we have to start looking at the different aspects of that. And so we started looking at all kinds of aspects of gallstone disease. We looked at difficult lap cholecystectomies, we looked at various criteria, the influence of timing, we looked at the how to predict difficulties. So total 32 publications on gallbladder. All my students, it's not all my alone, but all my international and national colleagues, we brought 32 publications. I never realized that we had a 32 publications. How did I realize? Because that time I went to IHPBA committee, and that time I went to the scientific committee after 4 years. For 4 years I was scientific committee of IHPBA. It's an international committee and it's a very different experience. When we go to conferences and how we manage, we sit on paper and we say, ये बड़ा बॉस है, इसको HOD को ये लेक्चर दे दो, इसको ये दे दो, we have to accommodate him. There the scenario was totally different. Everybody was sitting with a laptop. And you utter a word, Dr. Supe, they will immediately put a name saying that iska ispe kitna publications. Maybe it is little too much on the other side, but they looked at what you have published and then they give you that kind of a presenting slot. And they also had something called as a think tank. You know, this is something which is unique. I remember you were sitting in a hall with about 20 people who were the world leaders, like Nimura, Steven Strasberg, and everybody who's who in HPB surgery, Buchler, and everybody. And then you are thinking about the scientific progress, how we have to take it further. Now, these are the things which open up your mind. Otherwise, you are closed in your kind of a system, and we are very happy with that system. They tell you what are the new frontiers into the research. And then I was invited by the Ministry of Japan for developing Tokyo guidelines. Now, usually that was just simple invitation because I was on the scientific committee, so I went there. And it was an amazing feast. It was a 3 days. We published first Tokyo guidelines in 7, then we published in 13, and now latest guidelines we published this month, January. I mean, last year it got published. And there were 1 paper in 2007, 6 papers and 8 papers. So total about 15 papers we published, all index PubMed and stalwart Sexo authors. So that really gives you a value. When you say, and these are collaborative papers, it's not my name is first, but it's a collaborative value you have. So role of guidelines, evidence is not available for every process, and consensus guidelines are not only to guide physicians but also to help community and courts. Today courts ask us guidelines. Have you done it as per the guidelines? So we had new publication which all of us should read is that we wrote a Delphi consensus technique. This got published this month. That what are the patterns of misidentification, when to stop, where to stop, how to prevent injury and what alternatives. Fools say they learn from experience, prefer to learn from the experience of others. So I wrote another paper on asymptomatic gallstone. Now this was one of my projects for I did a course on clinical decision making, and then they said, because I did it sometime in 2010-11. At that age I realized that clinical decision making is a full science. So I created a kind of an Markov model and published it. Then I got a request for chapter, and they said that when we were selecting authors, we realized that you have the maximum publications from India in this area. So me and Prabhu wrote a chapter on gallstone disease and all of the noted textbooks. So you realize that when you continue to work, simple things that also get recognized over a period of time. So bad writing precedes good writing. This is an infallible rule. So don't waste time in trying to avoid bad writing. Your first papers will be bad. You know, I remember Dr. Mukund Thatte, who also did his SION. Both of us wrote one paper that time when I was a resident. He was a lecturer and he was my registrar sometime in 84-85. And we gave it to Dr. Ravin Thatte. Dr. Ravin Thatte gave us that paper back with complete red. That means there were so many editings which were done that we felt very ashamed. Okay, can we write such a bad paper? But don't feel bad about it. You start with your bad writing. You know, you will continue to ultimately progress over a period of time because your first draft and second drafts are going to be bad as they are. Then I remember there came the Stopa's repair. One of my registrar who was a lecturer that time, Dr. Prashant Rao, went to Germany or I think Switzerland to learn something about the laparoscopy. And he came and said there is something called the Stoppa's repair. So we started working on that. It was we have repeated somebody what has done. The first study of Stoppa's repair in India, that was a very innovative kind of concept that time. Tech was not really established. But to our surprise, my registrar, Vinay Thapar, when he wrote that article, that got really noted into the Mastery of Surgery textbook, which is the topmost book in that. So his reference was quoted, which was a small study from our unit, not more than 25 patients. So don't consider that your work is small. It is much more documented. That's what I want to tell you through this. That you are doing something new, documented. Somewhere, somebody will register it. And then I did a study on stress at St. J.S. Medical College. This was a time when we had few suicides. And I was doing some postgraduate diploma into University of Mumbai. It was action research. And there was Dr. Kerawala, who was a very big person in educational research. She was head of the department, and she gave me this. I selected this topic. I first went and I started defining stress. I was confused. You could never define a stress for the academic paper. I went to Dr. Kaliyat, who was there, and she asked me, have you done tools, have you validated it? And I was lost because I had never thought about qualitative analysis, quantitative analysis. But I learned statistics, educational research, and this was one of my papers which is now maximally cited by 355 papers. And it was one of the landmark papers where at that time we used 7 tools and we did all that. It was a good model which is adopted by so many others. But we struggled at the beginning. And what was it? It was just 90 students from first MBBS, second MBBS and third MBBS, and their reactions about stress and how they really work on it. So this was doable study. There was one of our faculty came with a retromammary abscess, and she had a collection like this. Look at this pattern. We just aspirated it. It was a tuberculous abscess. Nowhere in the world you will find these kind of pictures. We said we have to write this. We wrote here, and it got published into Retromammary Abscess. Skeletal Radiology is one of the topmost journals in radiology. And we just published 7 cases of tuberculous retromammary abscesses. Today also, it is one of the very few papers which involves the bones and ribs with the tuberculosis. So we have so much of material, we have to just isolate and put it. Many of you must have really, riots and bomb blast. I remember so many of you have really seen so many of these things. How many of you are really converted into publication? Not many. I first wrote an article, Disaster Management RB Ready in 93. That article was read by the Chief Minister then, Sharad Pawar was there. And then he called me and saying that, why did you write that? We don't have this and that. Then I explained him that when a disaster comes like a bomb blast and riots, you require, and then we pointed out the included in DR policy. And then we wrote, me and Dr. Saposkar wrote many articles in Nigerian medicine, and now we have a disaster management plan thanks to Aparna, who now brought that, analyzed and reflected. So any event which happens in your own system, don't ignore it, record it. And that is what we need to really think when you are really doing this. Most important thing about publication is converting activity around you into opportunity and then identify pattern and make it useful for others. The Atul Gawande, I don't know how many of you really heard him, you must have read him. Sometime in 2003, I got a mail from him saying that, Dr. Supe, I want to come and work with you. I never knew Atul Gawande who was. So he came to my unit and he worked for 15 days. He took our rounds and everything. At the end, he gave me his book of complications with his signature saying that I have written a book. At that time, I realized, oh, he's a big author. And over years, now 10 years, he has done so much about, he was actually health advisor to the president of USA and he has written so much. But in one of his talk, he says very nicely, there are 2 reasons why doctors fail. One is ignorance, where you don't know, which is true. The knowledge is so vast, we don't know. But the second point is inaptitude. And what does inaptitude mean? Meaning that the knowledge exists, but an individual, a group of individuals fail to apply that knowledge correctly. So we are not able to apply that knowledge correctly. And that is what is called as a failure to rescue concept. That's the reason our patients, we miss complications and patients die. So if you analyze the death, many times it is failure to rescue and inaptitude rather than ignorance. Having said that, I would like to take you to my FEMA journey. In 2002, I applied for this FEMA fellowship. I was reluctant to apply. As Chetan rightly said, I never wanted to leave my clinical career. I was very happy with my clinical career. But that time, Dr. Kshirsagar was our dean and she said, you have to apply for this fellowship. So, okay, I applied. I got selected. I don't know what it was. It was a new fellowship. And they said, you will be taken into one of these sugarloaf kind of a beautiful resort. I was a little more shocked. What I'm going to do in that beautiful resort for 30 days. So I went there and it was one of the changing experience of the world. It really took us from how to behave in an international forum to how to write, how to do presentations, how to, the whole concept was completely changed in those 1 month. And then I went through many honors, global faculty, IFME, we developed a new GSMC FEMA Institute concept, which is now being done at about 9 countries, it is being done. And we got a lot of appreciations awards from all over the world and we presented practically at every level in the world. But then what happened, the story of GSMC, you know how things happen. We had a conference in Vellore where we were supposed to start an Asian Institute. And there was a fight between some people and they said we cannot do it Vellore. So GSMC said we will take it. And we took it and it was the first institute of the world. Now it is replicated, we have more than 1500 fellows and it's one of the strongest network that anywhere I go in the world, I will find my fellow. Whether it's Mongolia, whether it's a Chile, whether it's a Brazil, whether it's in Australia, I will have my fellow. And it is a strong bond which will help you to really grow. So we published a paper that time of challenges and issues of medical education in India. And I just wrote that time paper. And this paper was read by then MCI president. You know, and then I got a call from MCI president that Dr. Supe, you have been invited to Delhi to, I said, why are you inviting me? So I went there and everybody was sitting there, president and academic committee. And they asked me, Dr. Supe, why did you write this in this paper? And I had written there that India has a lot of challenges and India needs to change its curriculum, it needs to change the whole faculty development program. And I was a little taken aback that MCI calling you and specifically asking you why are you writing this. But then I told them that you have to include this faculty development program. And good to my fortune, MCI took that step and it really formed the MCI network of basic course and advanced course. And we developed that AdCom module. Now today we have almost about 20 centers, 10 nodal and 10 regional. And we have 35,000 teachers trained, 2,000 advanced course and 750 fellows. Only because of MCI really thought that time. So one paper can make such an impact onto the whole education. And then MCI has now spent crores of rupees on this kind of a faculty development program, which is one of the most unique in the world. No regulatory body spends money on faculty development, but we convinced them to really spend that. And then we wrote multiple international education papers on Flexner and interns perspective, and we wrote series of papers on international education. And that gives us a lot of visibility. And there may be topics which are related to us or country. That invites you to the editorial boards. Once you start writing, the best journals start inviting you on editorial boards. So the first invitation came from medical education, which was British Journal of Medical Education. So I am on their quality and standards advisory board. So if there is any problem with the journal, they will ask you. And there are 7 members all over the world. I have not met them. They are the world leaders, but we have only virtual conferences. But we have probably all complications of a paper come to us. I was assistant editor for clinical teacher. I am Korean Journal of Medical Education, and of course our own journals. I'm definitely working on editorial board, and it makes a lot of sense to you be on editorial boards. And we can take out papers out of editorial boards, reporting conflicts. Some of us, many have problems, somebody does conflicts of interest, then somebody really publishes on somebody else's name, all those kind of complications and international world come to you and you start really answering them and you develop all the guidelines, and you start. It's a wonderful work. You know, in the beginning you are working at a local level where you get the gratification of treating a patient. When you go at a higher level, you are a policy level, you get the gratification of a different kind, and the effects are seen after 10 years. But these are very important for you to also think, because you have to balance between both. And the most important is, I think we must talk about graduates and PGs. Engage education. I think all our students' thesis must be converted into publication. That's my first advice to you. Think about a topic for your PG which will be converted into publication, and not a routine publication. It should be in a good journal. Almost all my students' theses are published in index journals. Many series, few randomized controlled trials, monitor thesis and collect data. You know, some of my Nilesh doctor was my student, and he published a paper on hyperwave oxygen therapy in diabetic foot in 1992. We are getting hyperwave oxygen chambers now, but Nilesh published it almost about 1992, almost 25 years ago. Immunotherapy of modules, Harshad Purandare from neurosurgeon. Then we also published this paper with Charu. I think that was about early morphological changes of pancreas. It was one of the first paper on follow-up of after necrotic pancreatitis. And this was the last paper which was published by one of our residents on to the what is the pancreatic anastomose technique, what are the factors. Many of our undergraduate students started publishing before MBBS, and their ICMR fellowships, I'm sure. Many of our students have published these papers before they even passed MBBS, and with their first names. It's not, I mean, and we have given them that chance, which has helped them to really grow. Students is a perfect population for us. They are very enthusiastic, ambitious, they work hard, and they will help you to really grow. So convert your talks into publications. Always convert your talks into publication. I had a talk on how to make 35mm slides. You know, that time to making a slide was one of the most difficult thing to do. We used to go to radiology to save money, then take those pens and color it. You know, I don't know how many of you have gone through. But I converted it into a publication which is an index publication. Also, how to present a poster. You know, simple thing like this can be published and can do that. I did a lot of work on medical photography, you know, first workshop in medical photography, and it invited me to talk on the Golden Jubilee on ethical consideration of medical photography. That gave me a totally different angle to write. And we wrote a paper of that oration. Sometimes you are discussing at conferences, and you are sitting on a cup of coffee in the dinner. I think that's a good time to really write papers. One of the conferences when we are in Spain, wonderful place to really enjoy. I enjoyed also, I'm not saying I did not go to the beach. But one of the best things which was happened is that we wrote a paper. Zubair is from Singapore, William is from the USA, Tejinder is from Ludhiana, and the four of us wrote an article into academic medicine on what is relevance of flexural reform. You are just sitting across tea and eating. It's then an online development. So once you be in that online development of writing papers, things become very easy for you to write. I think discussion of conference, this was one interesting paper I wrote about national exam for India. That time the NEET had not come. I had gone to give a talk in APME, that is in Singapore, and one girl came to me, you know, she was from Dipti Nayak, she came medical educationist from Singapore. She said, "Sir, should we write a paper?" I said, "Yes," I never knew her. So she said, "I have one friend who is in Canada, and we will write it together." I said, "Okay." That time I was dean of the SION hospital. So I wrote a paper, and then it got published into student BMJ journal. And that was a national examination, it was just a blog. So what is important is that when you are talking to people, think for ideas, how I can convert into a paper. Similarly, last month I had gone to Jorhat. So we had a panel. We converted that panel into a paper. And this was all done by my colleagues, you know. And my colleagues are superb, you know, they can do anything. I mean, once you have a strong network of people, you can do wonders. Then you don't have to do much work. Then you have to only edit it. You know, as a dean, I'm sure you must be wondering how I get time, but I have a very strong network, and that is my strength. So you have a lot of fellowship activities. I have done so much of this. Many times what I would show you that when I was a fellow, I wrote a book on basic surgical skills. I don't know where to publish this. Nobody was ready to come for publishing. So then I put it in something called a Made portal. This is something like a clearing house. Now today, there are varieties of clearing house for every specialty. So if you feel you have created something and you are not able to publish, send this. These are authorized web publications. You can do them. And they have the same peer review process. They have the same downloads. For this book, I am telling you, I have more than say 9,900 downloads across the world. So your book goes so many ways, otherwise it would have remained into my cupboard. And I am sure, Sujata, you must be creating so many guidelines. So where do they go? They can go on to all these kind of letters. Similarly, when you do fellowships, you create a task in such a way that you prepare papers out of all of them. My best papers are written on airports, trains, and long flights. Many times you are traveling for 16 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours lounge, 8 hours lounge. I think use that time to write one of your best papers. Then, of course, you learn about quality. As you grow up, you write about qualitative research because that's a new world. Mixed research is today's phenomena. In last 10 years, people combine quantitative with qualitative. And then we can publish many. You know, doctors attack strike in 2017. You remember last year? There was so much of going on, fights were going on, and there was so much of talk which was going on. I just wrote one blog, and BMJ South Asia published that. And it was nothing but violence against doctors cannot be tolerated. And it got so much of visibility across Southeast Asia because this is a topic which is hard to everyone. Why not write about that topic? Why are we only seeing that academic publications? Deluge in August 17. All of us must have read in the news that KM got water. Even Commissioner said. So we did leptoprophylaxis. More than 66 lakh citizens screened, 3 lakh tablets of doxy distributed, lepto incidences. I already wrote a paper and it's getting published this year. About what, because this is a unique experience of the world which you cannot really replicate anywhere in the journey. There are only few deluge papers in the world. Some from the California or somewhere from this. You have one paper, I think. The microbiology department of Nair has one nice paper of something. But such papers need to come out of all this. MCI, I worked from MCI from 2010 to 18 on various committees and we had so many publications which came. Our recent publication which got last month was ATCOM booklet, which we now issued to 479 medical colleges. It's a wonderful work of people doing. But lastly, I must tell you, my department is my real strength. My working with my people, especially Chetan, Prabhu, Bhushan, Sharwari, my teachers and my students have taught me how to do projects and write papers. They are my best critics. I have improved because of them. Otherwise, because they are the people who really tell me what to write and what not to write. And our institution gives us opportunity. We have to use that to grow. And in fact, we have published so many papers together, which I think that is very interesting to really write papers. Like say spectrum of outcome of pancreatic trauma, influence of timing, post-plenectomies, responses, various kinds of papers which I cannot really go, but my department probably helps me to grow much more in my life. So actually if you look, my indices, I have a fairly middle kind of a career. I have about 259 papers, about Google Scholar 192, total papers are around 259, H index is 25, G index is 52. And if you really look, so much of work you can only do because of your network. You can only write papers because of your network. And if you realize in 2017 was the worst year for our KM. Because we have got Kamla Mill, we got Elphiston Road, we had got Deluge, we had so many violence. But in that I could write 17 papers in 2017. And out of which 8 are Tokyo guidelines, 1 is surgical, 2 chapters and 6 educational papers. And why I could do this? Only because I have a very strong network of people around me built over the last few years. If I had not built my network, to do everything on my own is very difficult. So what I want to give you a lesson to you is that as you grow in career, try to develop a network around you. If you don't have a network, you will not be able to grow. The strength of medical profession is how people you bring about and how they really help you. And that's the way you should be able to build on your own. So you balance between local and global. You can balance into all global journals, which are top-rated journals, and the local and national journals. Now there is a way of assessing scholarship. You know, that you can really say there are different ways of really doing presentations, courses. This all is new to the world, which will take time to really come. But what you should really do is look for patterns while working, use available help and resources, thematic and systematic development, build your career and academic leadership. I'm not going to cry what I could not do, because I could have sat on a library and written 400 papers. I'm going to happy and share that this happened and I can do this. And that's the approach all of us must take. We shouldn't really go on crying कि मैं ये कर सकता था, वो कर सकता था. I'm very happy to share you that yes, we have done this. And this we could do it within our own system, within our own way of growing, and this has its own benefits. Writing a paper helps you to really grow and visible you at nationally. Today also, if you go somewhere, people will come and tell you, sir, I have read your paper and I have really cited in one of my thesis. That happiness is also equally good than you're seeing a patient on the road and he says, "Saab, tumne mere ko 20 saal pehle operation kiya tha, I'm fine." That gratification and that policy has to go simultaneously. You as an academic leader have to push yourself beyond and develop a network. And let me tell you, our cultures have such a talent. We have to just pick up that talent and follow your passion, and success will follow you. I would like to thank Dr. Naik, Abraham, Dr. Bapat, of course, Dr. Samsi, Dr. Mathur and Dr. Dalvi. But most important is my team, who is everybody here. I'm so happy to see them, and Dr. Tatte, Dr. Badwe, Dr. Karnar and Prasad, and wish you a very happy life.